Welcome to another exciting episode of Deterrence Down Under, a podcast dedicated to Australia and the challenges of deterrence in the Indo-Pacific region. Deterrence Down Under is part of the National Institute for Deterrence Studies podcasting network, where we strive to promote peace, foster strategic stability, and help you to think deterrence. Just a friendly reminder that the opinions expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and don't necessarily reflect any institution with which they may be affiliated. G'day from Canberra. We hope you enjoyed the show. Hey there. Welcome to Deterrence Down Under. I'm your host, Carl Rhodes.
Hey, I'm Christine Leah.
And today's chat is our hosts, Christine and I, are going to cover a topic that came in through our mailbag. One of our listeners reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, we should cover the importance of energy resilience in its connection to deterrence on the podcast. So we're gonna start kind of big today. We're gonna ask the questions of what is resilience, what is mobilization in the Australian context, and how does it all fit together with deterrence? So that's where we're going to go today. But first of all, we have breaking news from Christine. So I hear someone special in your life surprised you last week. Is this true?
Hey, Carl. Morning. Yeah, it was my birthday recently, and my dear Mark made me. In the US, you call the nuclear football, as it's commonly known. He made me my own nuclear football.
So you were getting like President Trump envy? Someone was following around with a nuclear suitcase and you wanted one of your own, huh?
That's right. I should have plugged it in before. Anyway, so it's got like... it's got its own command system. So I've got like...
Yeah, this is where you need the YouTube. So she literally has a key on both sides where you have to turn the key, light the switches, and press the button. So it looks just like you would in the movies, even better, actually. Mark did a really good job with this.
Thank you. Yeah, you've got two key buttons. You've got to bypass the DFAT. So DFAT is our equivalent to the State Department.
Yeah. Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, yep.
Foreign Affairs and Trade. And I've got different escalation options. I haven't turned it on, but like, there's the bored, good, bad, ooh la la, effed, and doomed, and you've got the keys. Where are the keys?
When it's all plugged in, when you hit the button, there's a mushroom cloud, right?
There's a mushroom cloud that comes up.
I mean, this is something you cannot buy off of any, Amazon.com. This is a custom-made nuclear command and control system. So, I mean, very cool, Christine. Very cool.
Thank you.
Kudos to Mark. Happy birthday to you. And for all of those who just celebrated, because I think this will come out after the Thanksgiving holiday in the U.S. Happy Thanksgiving to you all.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
Exactly. Hope you filled up your bellies and got a good watch of football. But now let's jump over to today's deterrence news. And that highlights the importance of cyber vigilance for all of us working on defense topics. So a string of cyber attacks has hit Australia's defense supply chain and exposed the details of high-value systems, including the Redback infantry fighting vehicle and details about several naval contracts. So the Cyber Tufan group, I might be pronouncing that correctly or incorrectly, but they posted images and details on Telegram about the Redback infantry fighting vehicle using files stolen from several Israeli defense companies. And in a separate attack, the J Group ransomware gang infiltrated ICAD Engineering, a key player in Australia's defense industry. So supposedly the group spent about 5 months, what they say, they were having a holiday in the company systems, collecting information about programs, including the Hunter-class frigate and Collins-class submarine. So just a reminder out there, supply chain firms, even when you're handling non-sensitive data, doesn't even need to be classified or engineering sensitive. It's really a prime target because our adversaries are exploiting our weak links to gain knowledge, strategic leverage, and all that could really put the lives of those in our defense force at risk. So be careful out there. I mean, I'm working through my own cyber security certification at the moment. It's a pain in the backside, but very worthwhile doing for sure. But I mean, this is one aspect of our topic today, which is resilience, deterrence, and mobilization. Being cyber resilient, being able to fend off those attacks. But let's swing back to today's focus, Christine, and let's chat about resilience and mobilization. So how does defense and the government define and think about these two terms, resilience and mobilization?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting from a historical perspective. How the West or different countries have thought about the concept of mobilization, because in the past, a lot of countries have tended to, formally declare war against other countries, as probably. I don't know, but I think the last time was kind of Western Europe declaring war against Germany at the time in the Second World War, in the lead up to the Second World War. But we don't seem to be doing that a lot so much. And so this concept of mobilization, as we've traditionally known it, has, and with changes in technology and how we think about conflict, war, and what is conflict and what is full-on war, has evolved over time, especially with sort of hybrid tactics. Russia's Little Green Men, I remember at the time 10 years ago, has changed. So it's evolved how we have and might think about the concept of mobilization. So there's a lot of talk of, we're in the pre-mobilization years here in Australia, as in, like, we kind of think we might be going to war with China over Taiwan with the United States, but maybe not. We're not sure. And the word itself, mobilization, has kind of dirty is not the right word, but it has a connotation because, to some extent, it is connected with the idea of conscription, which is...
Yeah, I was going to say that's one thing that's different than the United States. Mobilization is linked to the Guard and Reserve. It's that process of pulling those people into duty to go fight a war. That's how the United States thinks about it. So Australia has a slightly different take on mobilization that you're explaining here, which is this is an all-of-nation effort to get ready, right?
Yeah, and what one might hear in various corridors of state and national offices is more the word resilience, which is a more palatable idea or concept, which is perhaps less military focused, but more whole of nation, and linked back to the pandemic, right? Like COVID, we have to build national resilience to be able to deal with whole of nation crises, not necessarily military ones. So that seems to be the language coming out of government about, Australia needs to be a resilient nation, and it's not necessarily linked to military conflict.
Yeah, exactly. And resilience gets thrown around a lot in the disaster community, like natural disasters and things like that. And people think about resilience and your ability to kind of survive and recover from a major incident, be it a bushfire or a tsunami or a flood or whatever it might be. So I pulled up some stuff from the Disaster Resilience Handbook here in Australia, because we do have a lot of disasters here. I think this is one of the things that, when we think about Australia and how we're placed, this has been a nation where people live in relatively remote areas. They have to be ready for disasters and come together as a community to deal with it, because the federal government isn't always there to come help. So they lay out kind of 4 stages of resilience as part of this, which is preparedness, being ready for whatever might happen; response, in terms of when it's happening, how do you respond to it; recovery after it happens or while it's happening. How do you turn around from it? And then go back to prevention, and that feeds back into preparedness. So how do you prevent whatever might happen? And we can think about probably some of this in the same way as we think about it for natural disasters as for warfare, right?
Yeah, mate. Look, I'm from Queensland. Did you see those storms up recently? Like
Yes.
hail, like this big, mate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my car was a write off because of hail that big here in Canberra. I got caught by the storm in 2020 that predated COVID by 2 or 3 months, and put hail that big onto my car, and every single panel was damaged beyond repair in my car. Luckily, the windshield or windscreen stayed in place, so that was good.
Wow, that's crazy. But yeah, no, it's no, you're absolutely right, and um, we are a nation of sort of emergencies, catastrophes, and so forth, and it is interesting. For example, debates. It has. I'm creating a new topic here, but it's relatively important. There have been debates over what is the role of the Australian Defence Force, because the ADF, as we call it here, has been called on to do non-traditional, one might say, uh, roles in responding and helping the communities respond to such catastrophes, such as the floods in Lismore, bushfires. By the way, bush is like trees for American audience.
It'd be called a forest fire in the U.S.
A forest fire. Okay. Thank you, Bureau of Land Management. Yeah. But it has. So we have used the ADF to help communities respond to such emergencies, but it does raise a broader debate about, well, what is the role of the ADF fundamentally? Well, because if you're using the ADF to respond to such emergencies, you're taking resources away from the core task of the ADF, which is to defend Australia. And again, governments since the end of the Cold War have not really articulated clearly what the role of the ADF is. And so, again, coming back to this point about national resilience and, we may or may not be supporting the US in the event of a war over Taiwan, well, can we have a conversation about the spectrum of mobilization / resilience? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really important point because the United States has some, I won't call it slack, but some ability to handle it through the use of the National Guard. So governors have the National Guard that they can deploy to emergencies in their area. Australia doesn't really have that. The reserves are really a force that is, built to assist in peacetime and, be called up upon in wartime, but they don't train for a different mission. And you're exactly right that the Defense Force is a limited resource and can only focus on so many things at once. So if you are focusing on disaster relief and those things, and that may be an important role, you are taking away from other missions they could be doing, warfighting missions, and preparing for that. So the preparedness thing comes at a cost in terms of getting ready for emergencies and all that. So yeah, exactly right. So how about deterrence and resilience? How do we think about that intertwining? A lot of people say, "Oh, if we're more resilient, we can deter better." What's the theory say about that, Christine? Going to use your PhD.
Thank you. I get to use my PhD. So no. Jokes aside, resilience does absolutely, of course, have a role to play, and my head goes immediately to two concepts. First is our classic and dear friend, damage limitation. If you can absorb a first strike, you are able to conduct a second strike, or a counter strike, as some countries like to say. The second concept, and parallel and linked to this, is the concept of civil defense, which the US and the USSR did a hell of a lot of thinking about during the Cold War, right? And we have a great colleague, Edward Geist, who did his PhD on this at the University of North Carolina. Soviet thinking about the history of missile defense and how they designed some of their cities to be able to withstand a first US strike on their soil. And it's something that some countries have practiced a lot, like Israel, which has been under constant threat, right? So to varying extents, different countries have practiced the idea of civil defense, of the populace being able to survive, or some percentage of the populace being able to survive strikes, and then being able to continue to exist. So one basic thing that I think a lot of listeners will be familiar with is duck and cover.
Yeah. We did that in my, early days of school. So the duck and cover, don't look at the flash as if you'd have any warning in a time of a nuclear attack, but those kind of things. But yeah, I mean, the biggest example of this, and this is probably part of the Ukrainian mindset now, but if we think back to the Blitz in World War II, and London and all that was under severe attack by missiles and all that, but it brought them together and made them stronger. So the attack that was meant to weaken the morale of the people actually strengthened it. And there is a lot of history to show that air attacks against civil targets and civilian populations has much less effect on impacting the morale, and sometimes can even strengthen the morale of the people that are being attacked. But so that's kind of one aspect of resilience, is the psychological resilience, right? The mindset of the people. Are they not willing, able to withstand attack and still carry out life in somewhat a normal manner rather than panicking? And how do you prepare people for that? So I think that's one aspect of resilience. And if people are good at that, it helps the nation run more effectively and be able to fight back against an enemy, which makes them less willing to attack because they know they will have less success, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's such a fascinating set of ideas. I remember being a student and there being a lot of debates about the value of strategic bombing. To what extent is it effective in war? And I lived in Burma for a little bit as a journalist. I was with the Karen National Liberation Army, which is one of the ethnic groups on the Burmese border, and it's the civil war that never gets talked about. The longest civil war since the Second World War. Yeah. It never gets talked about between Burma and the ethnic groups, but the people there, they're being bombed. There's horrible human rights violations by the Burmese armed forces, but the ethnic groups on the border, they get bombed, but they are still going. They are building their own drones, their own 3D ammunitions. They are still going. They are the epitome of resilience, in my view. But no, it's fascinating, how the psychology of resilience, and the Ukrainians, we keep going, we are a nation, we are one people. It's just so interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's other parts of resilience that are important too. Like, you want your defense forces themselves to be able to withstand an attack, and you can do that through sheltering your forces or dispersing them or those kind of things, and that makes it less valuable to attack those forces. There's defense industry. So if your defense forces get attrited, how do you replace those? Or if you're using munitions, how do you build more? So that needs to be resilient. You need to have resilient supply chains. So the idea of having global supply chains in a time of conflict may be a bit of a challenge. And one of the hardest things, I think, is that during peacetime, you want to be efficient, right? And sometimes that means centralizing things and buying things overseas, buy from the cheapest, provider. But sometimes those means of supply aren't as resilient as they should be. So to be more resilient in the face of attack, you might need multiple, manufacturing sites, all of which isn't very efficient in peacetime, but is critically important to be resilient during time of conflict, right?
Yeah, That is a great point, and we saw a lot of that during COVID. I think most countries felt the pressures of, oh well, we can't get these parts from this country, well, and then this concept, this idea has been floating for some time. What is it? A friend. I forget the term. Friend sharing or friend supply chaining. I can't remember, but it's forcing. That has forced, and thinking about sort of, well, we can't get these parts from China. Where else should we go?
Yep.
Rethinking, I think, well, for the last, I don't know, few decades, how we've thought about what supply chains are, who we've traditionally relied on, and how might we diversify. It was interesting, when we moved here from France back to Australia. I think ours was one of the cargoes that got stuck in the Suez Canal.
Oh,
and they
wow.
got blocked.
You were the evergreen ship that was blocking the canal there.
But, well, no, not literally, but like this concept of like, okay, what are the traditional routes, etc. And there are heaps of maps on the internet about, alternative supply chains and where would they go based on what technologies and so forth.
Yep.
Yeah, rethinking.
Yeah, I mean, another big one is communications, right? So there's only so many fiber optic lines in the ocean, these transatlantic and transpacific cables and trans other ocean cables. So there's that, and those are obviously vulnerable to undersea attack. So you can say, oh, well, we'll go to satellites. We'll go use Starlink. And Elon Musk in Ukraine decided to turn it off for a period of time because he was worried about an attack. So I mean, there are all kinds of things in resilience we need to think about: communications, healthcare needs. How do we get the medicines we need to keep the people well? Food. We're pretty fortunate here that we grow a lot of food, but there are some foods that come from other places. And there's the whole financial system too. So all of this kind of fits together and needs to be resilient in time of conflict, such that it keeps running to some extent. It might not run to the extent that it did in peacetime, but to keep some minimum viable capability. I don't like those words, but I'll say that here. To keep the nation running, it's really important, right?
Absolutely, yes. Let's not use MVC as a word.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, there is the other piece of warning, and you talked about this in terms of having a war and a declared war and a clear line that this is peace and this is war, and that doesn't really exist today, right? We're seeing it in Europe in spades. Like I just saw this morning, a bunch of drones, probably from Russia, were flying over Romania, and those drones keep flying deeper and deeper into NATO countries. So how does that? How do we think about the warning time for conflict and staying ready? Because it's really expensive to stay at a high level of readiness for a long time.
Yeah, it's such an interesting idea and concept, and yeah, it goes, for me, it goes back to fundamentals like how we think about time and space. And one of the points I like to bring up, and again, this is all debatable and relative. One of the things I like to bring up is the unpacking what is a nuclear weapon and nuclear deterrence. So for me, like for example, I like to bring up the point that nuclear warheads emerged at roughly the same time as long-range missiles. Long-range as in over 100 kilometers, let's say, the doodlebugs, the V2s, etc.
Yep.
And this idea that you could attack another country over there, without sending troops. So you can sit there and you can lob your missiles, but you don't actually have to be present.
Right.
To wreak damage, and you don't have to be physically present to hurt them. So it goes back to those fundamentals for me about, well, and it kind of blurs time and space in that, well, I could lob a missile at you at any time. I don't have to be on your doorstep. Same with kind of what is cyber, etc. It blurs that line between time and space and when you're at conflict and when you're not. I don't know if that makes
Right.
sense.
No, it totally makes sense because if you need to move, say, 100,000 troops to go invade a nation, not only are you moving the troops, you're moving some ships to move the troops. You're moving food to feed the troops. You might need to move water and fuel. You need to move ammunition. There's all kinds of things that will give you a signal that something's about to happen. Right?
Something's about to happen, right? Yeah, you've got tactical or strategic warning.
Yep, exactly. And in the nuclear age and missile age, it doesn't even have to be nuclear. I mean, China has missiles that can reach Australia from Chinese mainland that are conventional missiles that could strike and be launched and probably be on the ground 30 to 45 minutes, something like that. So that concept of, oh, the war is coming, we can get ready. Like you can see the tsunami forecast and it's coming and I've got an hour to get out of the way. Or there's I don't know, a hurricane coming, if you're living in the Northern Hemisphere, and we've got, 3 days to prepare and go to the shops and stock up on food and board up the windows. We don't have the luxury of having that readiness. So we need to have some level of knowledge and readiness in all times. And I think that's what other nations are doing in Europe right now. Yeah. So, I mean, I pulled together a few examples of what can we learn from other nations. So Poland, this is pulled from the news over the past 6 to 9 months. Poland's getting ready to train every single adult in the nation for war. They have an Always Prepared program that's going to train 400,000 people in 2026. And the program is dubbed as the largest military training in Polish history. It's going to be available to all citizens from primary school age to old age pensioners. So, and they're also growing their defense budget to 4.8% of GDP. Now they're sitting right on, that border with Ukraine and are worried about, Russia, maybe coming across and doing them harm. We've got Norway, who's now requiring all new buildings to have a bomb shelter, and they're renovating some of their old bomb shelters as well. So if you do a new build, you got to have a basement where you can go duck and cover. So that's a big thing, right? That's not cheap, and that's something that is being imposed on everyone. Sweden's put pamphlets in everyone's postbox on how to prepare and cope in the event of war or other unexpected crises, and Finland's done the same. So if you want to know how to handle the nuclear attack, you have a little handbook that showed up in your mailbox. And Denmark has emailed all adults details on how much water, food, and medicine they might need to get through a crisis for 3 days. So these are other nations that are feeling the effects of a heightened level of threat from Russia. And we talk about the worst strategic, events of all times, or not of all times, since World War II here in Australia. This is the worst strategic environment. That's the talking point since, World War II. Yet I haven't gotten any of these things. I haven't received any pamphlets, don't know where to go if the bomb goes off. I'll probably go to the wine cellar and pull out a couple bottles. I mean, that would be my best solution right now based on official guidance, right?
Well, Carl, I've got membership at Shaw Wineries in Murray Bateman. You can join me in the wine cellar.
That wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, getting away, I can see the Parliament House from, not too far from my house if I go up on the hill. And so, being a little bit further away up in Murray Bateman in wine country would be nice for many reasons. But this really gets to where should we be sitting and where are we sitting on the scale of comfortable to anxious about attack? And right now we're feeling pretty comfortable in terms of, the official guidance from the government. I will say that. And we talk about a good game about being ready for conflict, but I don't know if any, wheels have turned to get us ready. And there are ways to get us ready for bushfire, right? Like Australia is really good at getting ready for dealing with the threat of bushfire, knowing how to evacuate, having a set of colors that tell you when to stay home, when to pack your bags, and when to get up and go, and when it's too late to go and you should stay there. It's a very clear signaling, and everyone knows it who lives in areas affected by bushfire, right?
Yeah, I wish it's on my fridge, but yeah, I've got the bushfire warning system. Yeah, no, it's a great point. I hadn't thought about that, like compared to members of our audience who might be from different countries. Yeah, like we're really good at responding to crises on our own territory. But you're absolutely right. It's such an interesting point. You know, supposedly we are in the worst strategic circumstances since World War II, but there's no narrative on national resilience. It's really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. Well, I mean, this gets to a bigger topic, and we won't have time to finish this discussion today because we're coming close to the end. But I mean, how do we ready the nation without spooking our trading partners, right? I mean, this is the tricky one, which is Australia does a lot of trade with China. Australia runs a massive, excess of trade and makes a lot of money off that trade. It's kind of the opposite situation in the U.S. Yet our biggest threat at the same time is China, right? So how do we stay ready for their bad behavior because they aren't behaving as an ideal friend would in the South China Sea against other nations, even against Australia? They carried out a campaign of economic coercion during the COVID time. So how do we think about being ready without spooking the person who's buying all of our goods, right? We don't want to scare them out of the shop.
So I can't watch this show because it's too painful to watch. But there is a great, if you go into YouTube, there's like a 1-minute video. If you type Utopia China episode, there is a great clip. It's 1 minute. It just explains everything.
Yeah, exactly. And for those who haven't seen the show, it's called something else in the U.S. It's on Netflix there, but it's not called Utopia. I forget the name. It's like Dreamland or something like that. But it's basically an Australian government version of The Office. And some guy gets moved over to work in defense and interact with them for a few weeks. And he's trying to understand the security strategy here in Australia, or I should say the defense strategy. And this was done about it was about a decade ago or so, probably somewhere around there. But he's trying to understand it, and he says, "Wait, so you're planning on protecting all our shipping lanes when 90% of our shipping goes to China? So what exactly are we protecting here? They're going to attack the ships that are going to China, So,
what if I say a name, you just nod."
Exactly. Yeah, there's also, you can't say the name of the country. And if you look at the National Defense Strategy, it's not in there. But we will have a new National Defense Strategy in about 6 months, supposedly. That's the word on the street, because they're supposed to do it every 2 years. So,
that's right.
Yeah, so I think there's that piece. How do we ready the nation without spooking China too much because we like their money? And how do we ready the nation without crying wolf? Because you can only say, "Oh, be ready" so many times until no one takes it seriously. So what's the right level? Because we need to be a little bit more ready than we are today for conflict. But how do we get ready? And we'll be exploring that over the next episode or two, I think. Don't you think, Christine?
Sounds great.
Yeah, should be good. Hey, it was great chatting with you today, and hope all of our U.S. folks have had a great Thanksgiving. And hope all of our Australian folks are finishing up their end of year tasks. So for those in the U.S. that don't know, Australia, most of the nation goes on an extended vacation over the summer here in between Christmas and Australia Day. So a lot of January is spent on the beach or, enjoying a cold beverage, those kind of things. But great talking to you today about mobilization, resilience, deterrence, and all that. Really good to chat with you all the time, Christine. We'll get some guests on to explore this topic. I want to thank our listeners and encourage you to subscribe, review our podcast, tell some other people about us. We're looking to grow. And lastly, I hope you all have a great day. And remember to always think deterrence. Thank you for listening to Deterrence Down Under. Please take a minute to review the podcast, as your reviews help our podcast reach more listeners and expand the debate about strategic issues facing Australia and the region. Our show is made possible by the NIDS Podcasting Network, a division of the National Institute for Deterrence Studies. NIDS is a U.S.-based 501c3 organization that relies upon donations to produce this podcast and spread awareness of the peacekeeping value of U.S. strength, alliances, and deterrence. You can find a wide range of NIDS podcasts at thinkdeterrence.com. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to send us an email at ddu@thinkdeterrence.com. I would like to thank our producer, Kimberly Charrington, and our sponsors, and all the amazing members of the National Institute for Deterrence Studies for making this podcast possible.
NIDS Podcasting Network.